Look, normally when you have an altered state of consciousness, let's pick up on Siddhartha's metaphor, awakening, wakening up. That's in contrast to being asleep, to dreaming. So what happens in your typical state of altered state of consciousness, one that you experience every night? You're dreaming. And when you're in the dream state, you think that that world is real. You interact with it as if real, but when you wake up, you go, oh, that was just a dream. That wasn't real. This is real. This. Normally, when we come out of an altered state of consciousness, we point at it the finger of rejection and say, that isn't real. Oh, I was drunk. That's not real. Oh, I was high. That's not real. But sometimes people have certain kinds of experiences, altered states of consciousness, in which exactly the opposite occurs. They go into that state and they come back and they say, that was more real. That was really real. And this is less real. Do you see how that's axial? That's like, wait, that higher, why do we call it a higher state of consciousness? That higher state of consciousness, that I had access to the real world. And when I come back, like somebody in Plato's cave, I've come back out of the sunlight. This, I now realize, is only echoes and shadows. It's less real. In fact, and because of my desire to be in contact with what's real, I'm going to change myself and I'm going to change my world to try and recapture, sati, to remember what that's like. I want to live in greater contact with that really real. And so they start to transform their whole lives and their whole self. The whole agent-arena relationship is completely and radically, revolutionarily restructured. This is known as quantum change theory. Bad name, good theory. People do this. This is, of course, very important for understanding what happened to people like Siddhartha. In fact, most of the world religions that emerge at the axial revolution are predicated on the idea that there are higher states of consciousness that should empower, challenge, and encourage us to engage in such quantum transformation, to go through these radical transformative experiences. It's obviously at the core of Buddhism. You experience satori, right? You realize shunyata. It's at the core, right, of Vedanta, when I experience moksha and release. It's at the core of Taoism. I realize the Tao. So, how is it, right, that these experiences have such authority? But it's not just that they're important historically, right? They're at the core of the world religions, right? And you say, well, what about the Western? Like Sufism within Islam and the Christian mystic tradition and Kabbalah, like all of the world traditions point to these higher states of consciousness that can bring about these radical modal transformations in our cognition and our very being. But that's important enough. But like when you do surveys, if you look at some of the work that's been done, 30 to 40% of the population has experienced these events. And it's like flow across cultures, language groups, socioeconomic status, gender, pervasive and universal. Not universal in the sense that everybody has it, but universal in the sense that there doesn't seem to be any type, class, or order of human beings that is not capable of experiencing it. So both qualitatively, historically, and quantitatively, scientifically, it's like this is an important phenomenon. And here's what's really important for our purposes. There's a deep remember I said before, there's a deep connection between how often you flow and how meaningful you find your life. That is also more radically the case for these states. People who have experienced these higher states of consciousness and undergone these quantum changes, these deep transformational experiences, reliably report, and there's good experimental evidence to support it, that they have had a significant increase in meaning in life. In fact, many people report these experiences as the most significant in their life, and that a lot of the meaning of their life is hinged upon these transformations. There are deep connections between awakening and recovering meaning. There are deep connections between awakening and insight. As I've already indicated, we'll come back to see, there's a deep continuity between this kind of insight, mystical experience, and full-blown awakening experience.